The brain, like a computer, is complex, but it's also simple. The brain loves efficiency. It loves to create links and associations to streamline the process of thinking to acting. And it's these associations which dictate our behavior. For example, in Pavlov's dog study, what he found is that any event or any item that was associated with food, even the sound of the footsteps of him or his lab assistant, would cause his dogs to salivate. And we are no different than these dogs. If we are terrified of snakes because we associate snakes with danger, we wear tall boots and we jump into the air when we see a stick that looks like a snake. If we associate losing ourselves with relationships and love, then in relationships, we'll push our partners away and become emotionally avoidant. Most of these associations are in fact subconscious, so we are completely unaware of them. Each and every one of us is full of these associations, and some of these associations that we form benefit us. Others don't benefit us. Obviously, if what we really want is a relationship, but we associate relationships with losing ourselves, then that association is going to run counter to what it is that we want. But there is a solution. The solution is to change the associations. Before I teach you how to do this, I must say that any tool you use could be used for harm and it could be used for good. We could create a negative association in our minds so as to overcome an addiction which benefits us, or we could create a negative association in our minds so as to prevent us from something good which harms us. To the opposite side, we could create a positive association in our minds so as to help us achieve success which benefits us, or we could create a positive association in our minds so as to force us to gravitate towards something that is detrimental to us. This obviously harms us. This tool should not be used as a tool of denial, escapism, self-avoidance, self-resistance, or controlling and manipulating someone else. A person can do a lot of damage when they're using this power of replacing association so as to intentionally cause somebody's behavior to change. Cult trainers do this all the time. It is the hallmark of conditioning. A while ago, I was working with a woman who had a super violent and alcoholic father, and when he would get into his drunken rage fits, he would often smash his beer bottles in the house. And what happened is she formed an association between the sound of breaking glass and being beaten. So whenever the sound of broken glass would occur, this woman would have a panic attack. She would start to hyperventilate, and even to the extent where she would pass out. Obviously, this type of an association doesn't benefit you, because what do you do when you're out on a date and you've gone to dinner and a server drops a glass? Or what do you do when you're a mom and your kids are in the house and they drop a glass? She can't be hyperventilating, having a panic attack, and passing out in those scenarios. I guess she could, but doesn't really want to. And we could consider this to be an association which is detrimental to her life. So what we did is to change the association. What we did was to help her come up with a different, believable, and positive association with that very same sound. This woman loved Disney movies, and she especially related to Snow White. So what she thought about was maybe the sound of breaking glass could be when Snow White is in the coffin. If the glass breaks, it's almost like she's being broken free of this negative spell, and she's being rescued by her prince and is going off to live a life that is totally safe from harm. So we practiced to form a different association between the sound of breaking glass and that experience of feeling set free and rescued as if by a prince and ready to start a new life that is free from harm. You can do this with any kind of situation. To do this, just pick some negative association you have in your life that is negatively impacting your life. Try to recognize what the trigger is for that association to be set off and the behavioral impulses that follow that trigger. Then think of some other positive association you could form with that same trigger. Pick something that is particularly impactful and moving and powerful for you specifically. I find that we get the most success with this when people pick something which they find to be the most believable and compelling for themselves as individuals. Close your eyes and recognize the reaction that this negative association creates within you, such as thoughts, feelings, sensations, or images. Imagine yourself in that very scenario. You want to see it first from third-person perspective, as if you're watching yourself like a fly on the wall, and then in first-person perspective. Now, recognize the reaction that you have to the new positive thing you chose. What does it cause in you? Such as feelings, thoughts, sensations, and images. Imagine yourself in that very scenario. See it first from third-person perspective, as if you're watching yourself like a fly on the wall, and then in first-person perspective. Now that you've done that, I want you to imagine a color. Pick any color under the sun, but especially a color that helps you feel like your brain is being reset or cleared. Another alternative that you can use to picking a solid color to focus on is to imagine that you have a dry eraser, and imagine taking that dry eraser and watching yourself erase the thoughts or the images that are occurring within your mind. Whatever it takes to create a blank slate or else a reset. Now you want to imagine the first negative association state. For the woman in my example, this would be experiencing a situation where glass breaks. Imagine it happening in first-person perspective. When holding the image and imagining the experience begins to intensify the feelings and sensations in your body, immediately imagine the image of the positive replacement association coming in to quickly and aggressively replace the negative scene. For the woman in my example, this would be the image of a glass coffin breaking from third-person perspective. Once it has completely taken over the negative scene, experience that positive scene in first-person perspective. For the woman in my above example, this would be to fully imagine being inside that coffin and the sound of glass shattering being the sound of the coffin breaking open, so she is set free and rescued as if by a prince and ready to start a new life that is free from harm. Spend a few minutes really getting that experience in your whole body. Feel it settling into your cells. Now again, you want to imagine a color or else your dry eraser so that you can feel like the slate of your mind is wiped clean and as if you have had a reset. Then repeat this process with imagining yourself in that negative association scene in first-person perspective, and once you have that and it begins to intensify the emotions, imagine an instantaneous switch with that positive association or scene. And once that comes up, after you have seen it completely in third-person perspective as if you're observing it, switch into first-person perspective, completely experience what that positive association state feels like somatically in your body in first-person perspective, and deeply. Do this 11 different times, making sure that each time in between doing this, you go back to that technique where you reset yourself or clear the slate by imagining a single color, or else using your dry eraser to erase the thoughts and images occurring in your mind. The new association has been made, and not only made, it has been converted into the subconscious mind. It is no longer possible for that old negative association to have the kind of subconscious power and to create the automatic reaction that it once did. So from here, your job is quite simple. Every time you encounter that same trigger that created that negative association in the past, you use that as a kind of bell indicating, wait, right at this minute, this is an opportunity to reinforce that new link that I have to the positive association state. So the minute that you encounter that same trigger for the negative association, you instantaneously and consciously call up the image of whatever positive association replacement you decided upon and get yourself as deep into that experience in first-person perspective as you possibly can. For the woman in my above example, anytime a glass broke, she would use it as a trigger to intentionally and immediately close her eyes and imagine being inside that coffin and the sound of glass shattering being the sound of the coffin breaking open, so she's set free and rescued, as if by a prince and ready to start a new life that is free from harm. In this woman's case, after she'd practiced this in one sitting 11 times, she was able to not go into a panic attack. When glass broke, the first time it broke, her body got tense, but she didn't go full-blown into a state of anxiety. With further practice, now today, I can report that she's gotten to a place where she's actually looking forward to the trigger. Why? Because every time that a glass breaks now, she sees that as an opportunity to feel more set free and more set free each time. Automatic thoughts, feelings, and behaviors do not have to have the complete control over your life that they do today. They don't have to contradict your sense of free will. So the good news is, these automatic associations that have dictated a lot of the pain in your life, they don't have to be forever, and we can change them out for for positive ones. Have a good week.